Hi all, good morning. Hope I'm audible. Kindly respond in the chat if I'm audible. Thanks, Spesa. Thanks, Akanksha. Thanks, Ashima. Thanks, Ishika. Right. So yesterday we discussed that to some extent. Today we will see how we can use async task to retrieve the data or fetch the data from internet and show it on our activity. I'm using this text view that is of no use. Let's drag and drop a button on the screen. I will be setting this button to the end of the screen. I will make the button's width to match the parent. I'll change the button's name to get data. Okay. I think this button should be present on the top of the screen after the edit text box. You can drag and drop a plain text edit text box. You can even set the width of this edit text box to match the parent. Nice. Also change the text on this edit text box. Remove it. And as a hint, you can say enter your book name. Now get this button to the uh, very next to the edit text box. All right. So far so good. So this has some error. Insufficient text color contrast ratio. You can fix it if you want to. Nice. Hard-coded text, we will not be looking into it. That is okay. Okay, no issues. So once you have this done, once you have this ready, when the data is arriving, as soon as the data arrives, you can show that data in a scrollable text view. You can jump into containers, drag and drop the scroll view, set the top constraint, or first of all, do one thing. For the scroll view, decrease the size first, because only then you will be able to set the constraints. Okay, now that this box is there, right? So you can set up the constraints easily. Set the top constraint to the bottom constraint of the button, left constraint to left, right constraint to right, and bottom constraint to the bottom end of the screen. Okay, now you can change the height and width to match parent. Now inside the scroll view, there will be linear layout of vertical orientation created by default. Okay, we don't have any problem with this. However, we need a text view inside this linear layout. Let's just place this text view here. The ID of the text view is text view. And the ID of the edit text box is edit text person name. Cool. Along with all these components, when the data is being fetched, you cannot leave the user without showing him anything. Correct? At least let us show a small progress bar. You can drag and drop a progress bar here. Where is it? Yeah, drag and drop a progress bar here. Now set the progress bar's constraints. Set the bottom constraint to the bottom end of the screen, right constraint to right, left constraint to left, top constraint to the bottom constraint of the button. This progress bar also has an ID called progress bar. Now what should happen is, as soon as the button is pressed, this progress bar has to come to the visibility state. Okay. When the data is arrived, as soon as you get the data, this progress bar should be vanished out of this UI. As soon as you load the application, the progress bar should not be shown. When you click on this button, the progress bar must start here, must be shown to the user. When the data arrives, this progress bar must go away and the data must be displayed on the text view. Okay, cool. Now that you have all these components set up, let us jump into main activity. Before that, target and compile SDK versions, you can change it to 32. Hit on sync now so that the versions will change. Okay. Now let us jump into main activity.java and let us connect all these UI components. Okay. So we have got a text box. So let us create an text box option. I will call it query or book name, because the user will be entering the book name here. We also have an ID for the text view. So text view, we will say result. In the similar way, we also have progress bar. We call it progress bar. What else do we have? We have a button, but I will be creating an on-click event handler for the button. So I will not be needing an ID for the button. So you can create an on-click event handler. You can say get data. This get data method can be created on main activity. So far, so good. So let us connect book name, result, and progress bar in the onCreate method. So book name equals to FBB r dot id dot edit text person name. You know how to connect it. So I'm not going to talk when I'm doing this. Okay. When everything is connected, so we need to stop showing the progress bar to the user. So how do we stop showing the progress bar's visibility? When I Google searched it, I found that we can write progress bar dot set visibility to invisible. Okay. So from Google, how do I know that? Because only going through the official documentation. Otherwise, how would we know that? Okay. So when the button is pressed, when the button is pressed or clicked, this method gets invoked. Hence, show the progress bar. So progress bar dot set visibility to visible. Okay. If you run the application now, you'll find that the progress bar's visibility will not be in visible state. as soon as the application is done. But when the button is pressed, the progress bar visibility will start. Now our point is to get the data from internet. From the internet. So let us first go ahead and copy the URL. So this is the URL. Let us paste it here. String URL equals to, you can paste it here. Okay. You have to remove this Java because the user will be entering his or her favorite book names. Okay. Remove it. Now go to Android manifest.xml. Why? Because your application is going to use the internet connectivity. Right? Your application is going to use internet connectivity. As it is going to use internet connectivity, what we will write is uses permission internet. So this is mandatory. If you do not write this, you cannot perform a network operation and get the data from internet. That will become impossible. Okay. Right. So from main activity, as we already have the URL, let us make up the complete URL. Let us make up the complete URL. How do we make up the complete URL? As the button is pressed, get the book name entered by the user. So string book name B is equal to book name. Okay, book name dot get text dot to string. So you got the book name. Okay. Now string U, which is URL, is equal to URL plus 3. So whatever the URL is there, after the equal to symbol, your query or the query entered by the user will be appended. If I enter Android, after Q is equal to, I get Android. If I enter Java, after Q equal to, I will get Java. That is how this URL is made up. Now we need an async task to perform our network operation. So how do we create an async task? Right click on your package where your main activity is present. Go to new, choose Java class. Let us call it fetch data. The class name is fetch data. And we all know that we need to extend this class to async task. Sorry, it is async task, not loaded, just async task. Okay. And for async task, there are 3 generic types you are supposed to give. The first generic type is a string, that is for sure, because you will be inputting, you will be giving URL as the input for doing background. So string comes first. Next is void where V is capital. This is for progress update and non-progress. This is for publish progress and non-progress update methods. The final one is the input type of on post execute method. or the return type of doing background method. Because when you get the data, when you read the data, you will be reading it in a string format. And the same string format, you will be returning it to on post execute method. Now the default method that needs to be implemented or overridden is doing background. So you do alt enter here and click on implement methods. You get doing background. Nice. So far, so good. Let's see what to do next. So we are supposed to do networking. Now you may wonder, I haven't seen anything like this. What does it represent? It represents basically an array of indefinite size. Okay. So do not worry. Whatever the data that you are going to send will be received in the strings array. If you're sending only one piece of data, it comes into strings of 0. If you send two pieces of data, the first piece of data comes into strings of 0. The second piece of data comes into strings of 1. That's how it works. Once you have the data, what are the steps involved? Create a URL object out of this strings of 0. So URL equals to new URL of strings of 0. So you're just converting the string into a URL. Okay. You're just converting a string into a URL. Now you got this error. This is not an error. It represents that there is a possibility of encountering an exception with this line of code. So in order to avoid such kind of exceptions, we are supposed to surround this line with try-catch blocks. So you do alt enter, surround with try-catch. And this is a possibility for malformed URL exception only. I'd like to generalize it. As all of you already know, that exception is the superclass of all exceptions. So whatever the exception that I have, I will be printing it in the log cat. So this catch class alone is enough for us to handle the exceptions or to get the report. Once the URL is created, or once the string is converted to the URL, the next step is to establish a connection. Establish a connection. So we have HTTPS URL connection class. I'd like to call connection as the object to establish the connection. So how does the URL connection open? You simply have to call URL and simply call open connection on top of it. However, this returns open connection returns a connection object, but we require HTTPS URL connection object. As HTTPS URL connection is a subclass of a connection, the connection object can be converted to HTTPS URL connection explicitly. So all we need to do is you do alt enter, choose cast to HTTPS URL connection. That's it. Once this connection is there, now read the input string. As soon as the connection is established, you can read the input string. How? Very easy. You create an object for input string. Let's call it is equal to. You can call connection. URL connection. On top of it, you can call get input stream method that gives you the input stream. So with this line of code, logically, you are done reading the data. Logically speaking, as soon as you write connection.get input stream, you are done reading the data from internet. Now all we need to do is we have to put this data together and display it to the user. That's the only thing remaining. So far it seems so easy, isn't it? If you have a question, okay, if you have a question, please feel free to let me know. Yeah, Bunty is saying one error always comes. That is, your text view, edit text view size is too small. Happens, Bunty. So you can open that error and there will be a button called fix. You can hit on it. Then the error will be fixed automatically. Your text box size will be improved across the height, if I'm not wrong. All right. So any more questions? Any other questions? Okay. So moving ahead, once the input stream is read, the next step is to the very next step is to reading the data from the input stream. Altaf Raja is asking new URL of strings of 0. See, I told you that you will be getting the URL into doing background method. I will tell you how. Once the data is fetched, you are getting the string URL which is in main activity. This URL. And this URL you are giving it to URL constructor to convert this to a URL. Simple only. But the thing is that here you are receiving an array of strings. Okay. If you are sending only one piece of data, you will be getting the data in strings of 0. If you are passing more than one piece of data, let us say 2 pieces of data you are sending. One piece of data will be present in strings of 0. The second piece of data will be present in strings of 1. That's how it is. Okay. So as I'm only sending one piece of data, that is converted to a URL because I have to open a connection, read the input stream. Hope this explanation helped you. Yeah, thanks. Okay. Once the input stream is there, you're supposed to read the data. I'm using buffered reader because this is my personal favorite. It's equal to new buffered reader. You can also use a scanner. Okay. Try using it. Take it as an assignment. Try using scanner to read the input stream. Okay. New input stream reader of input stream. Now, logically, I'll create a string called line and I'll string buffer object, string builder object. SB is equal to new string builder. So you may wonder what is string builder. String builder is simply a data structure that will help you to concatenate multiple strings, store multiple strings inside of them. Okay. Now the logic goes like this. In the while loop, first I will read the data using br.readLine method into the line variable. If it is not null, only then I will perform the rest of the logic. The logic is that sb.append of line. That's it. Simple. So when we come out of this while loop, you will be having data in sb.append. I mean in sb variable that you can easily return by writing sb.toString. Okay. This seems difficult for a few students. Unfortunately, it is not very difficult. What we are doing is, based on the operator's precedence, we are first reading the data into line. This is not a equal to symbol. This is an assignment operator. If the line is not null, only then the same line is added to string builder. When you reach to the end of the file, this line, which is initialized by br.readline, would automatically be equal to null. Then you'll break this while loop and come out of it, only to return the data. Okay. Question for you, a quiz for you. A quiz for you. Okay. Very small quiz. I will see how many of you are actually following. I will understand that. Okay. Small quiz. When doing background method returns data, to which method it is actually returning the data? If you know the answer, type it here in the chat. Ashima, Akansha, Daniel, Vikram, Hemant, Banti, Ganesh Gupta, Ishika, Ravikiran, Gupta, Gupi, Nilakshi, Mohammed Galdar, Sarfraj Khan, Sweta, Vikash. Anyone can respond. I've got two responses. Ashima says string, but the question is, Ashima, which method would receive this data? Or doing background is returning some data, to which method it is returning the data? Sweta is correct. It is on post execute. Anil said buffer reader. Ashima again said buffer. It is not, unfortunately, correct. Okay. So now that you understood the data, understood where your data is flowing to, it is flowing to on post execute method from doing background method. Okay. So now everyone remembers this, right? If you remember this, please give me a thumbs up. If you remember the concept, yeah, thank you, Shamil, Gopi, thanks, Ashima, Shweta, thank you. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Nice of you. Very sweet of you. Moving ahead. So we do not have on post execute method here. Okay. And in on post execute method, I want to display the data on the text view. So what I'll do is I will create two objects, context and text. Also, as soon as the data arrives, I am supposed to control the progress bar. So I'll take the instance of the progress bar as well during the creation of this fetch data class object. So how do I do that? I do alt insert, choose constructor, and initialize all three at once. Now, so I have to override a method called on post execute method. So on post, as soon as I write on post, I get on post execute method suggestion from async task class. I can choose it. Now, as soon as the data arrives, you can set up the progress bars visibility to invisible. Next, you can show the data on top of the text view. Simple. So on post execute method is receiving its data from doing background method into a string variable s, and the same s variable is shown on the text view. No change. Now let us connect the device and try to run the application to my device. Right. Let's run the application and try to see if we get an output. You will not get an output, unfortunately, because fetch data has no connection with main activity. Okay. Fetch data class is in gray, which means it is not having any connection to any other class. It is not being used at all. So in order to use it, we have to call it from main activity. Anyway, forgetting this, I run this application. No problem. We will wait for the application to run, and then we'll come back to main activity and establish a connection. No, it is made visible, man. It is made visible. Akansha, I'll show you that. I'll show you that. Okay. So here, if you see in the main activity, when get data method is pressed, only then you can go ahead and create an object for fetch data method FT that is equal to new fetch data. And for this fetch data method, you need to pass the context object. Then you're supposed to pass the text view reference. Here, the text view reference is result. And also, you're supposed to. So, how do you call doing background method? How do you call doing background method? Fd dot execute. We have a method called execute method. So this execute method, when it is passed with some data, which is u in this case, what is u? U is the URL. You will be directly calling doing background method. You should not call ft dot doing background. You should only call ft dot execute. That calls in the doing background method. Now I think the application is good to run. Now go to Visor. I think the app is running. Okay, the book name that I want to search is Android. So I should be getting a huge amount of data. See, as soon as I tap on this button, the progress bar started. And as soon as you get the data, the progress bar stopped itself. And you see a huge amount of data, and that is not at all readable. Right? This is not readable at all. However, you are successful in fetching the data. That is good. Right. So, how many of you understood it completely? How many of you have questions to ask? Today I'm not really well because I'm having a severe headache early in the morning. Don't know the reason. Even then, I tried my best to explain this concept. If you did not understand, I'm okay. I can repeat this tomorrow as well. Yeah, we'll do tomorrow anyway. I just want to know if you understood till here. Thanks, Akansha, for responding. Thank you, Alter. Okay. Ravikiran asked to repeat. Okay. Right. Good, good, Ashima. Please do practice. Shweta says yes. Thank you. Okay. To keep this everything into your mind, what I will do is, you know, how to connect an object. I mean, how to create a UI. I need not to explain. You are good at it, as far as I know. You are connecting the UI components, and then you are also creating the yeah separately I've written it. But the point is, okay, you can if you see if you really want your fetch data method, sorry, your fetch data class created in main activity, you can do that. Okay, the process remains the same. Even if fetch data method is here only, fetch data class is here only, you will have the same uh, flow. The flow is the same, right? Okay. So now try to understand the Bunty as I'm re-explaining things to you. Okay. So you create a string URL and then you have this UI components to initialize. Once the UI components are initialized, you will set the progress bar's visibility to invisible because as soon as the app loads in, you don't want your users to see a progress bar that is already running. Correct. So as the user clicks on a button, you will invoke this method and you know how to create this one as well. Now what I did was, as soon as the button is pressed, I am enabling my progress bar's visibility. First of all, I'm getting the name of the book that is entered by the user. I'm just adding that book name to the query, which is this. After q equal to, you will have the search query, and that you are writing it here. Now, finally, you're creating an object for fetch data, sending in the context, text view reference, and progress bar reference. Finally, you are calling the execute method by sending the URL. This is only one piece of data. This is only one piece of data. Okay. So what happens in fetch data, we will see. This fetch data class is extended into async task, which takes in three um, generic types. This one is for doing backgrounds input type. This one is for progress update. This one is for on post execute method. So typically what I did was after extending my class to async task class, I created three objects: context, text view, progress bar. I initialized all of them with the help of the constructor. Override doing background method to actually perform the network operation. I will get the data in strings array. So if I put a comma here, if I put some comma and write my name, now it will have two pieces of data. So in the two pieces of data, if you want the first piece of data, you should write strings of 0. If you want the second piece of data, you should write strings of 1. Okay. But here I'm only sending one piece of data. And in the doing background method, you receive it in the strings of 0. Okay. And that strings of zero is converted as a URL, and then a connection is established. Input stream is read, and with the buffered reader, we are reading the data to SB variable, and this same is returned from doing background method to on post execute method. And in on post execute method, as you get the data, you're simply showing it on top of the text view, and also you are stopping the progress path visibility. Hope you got my point now. Ravi Kiran, are you comfortable right now after this explanation? Banti Rathod. Yeah, thank you, Banti, for responding. Thank you, Ravi Kiran. And Banti, if you are really very confused by the separate classes, you can create this fetch data class as an inner class of this main activity. That is also a good approach. But I don't recommend that because you will miss out on the modularity of coding. All right. Suppose if you want to change something, instead of scrolling up and down, going to the file and modifying it becomes easy for you. That is a good practice. All right. Thank you so much, guys. I cannot extend more. Today, I am keeping the session too short. I understand that. But I don't want to miss out on the continuity. That is the point. That is the reason I took up the session today. Okay. So as this entire code will be available to you on the Bitbucket repository, make sure you're visiting it and practicing it. If you only practice, you will get the things properly. You'll understand the things properly. Otherwise, you'll feel like you understood the concept, but eventually, when you are asked to do it, you will not be able to do it. This is from a personal experience. I'm sharing it. Okay. So how many remotes? Okay, git push origin name master. This is the one. Okay, the code is now available on Bitbucket repository. Try to visit the code. In the Google Classroom, also I need to add a task. Okay, cool. So that's all for the day. Thank you so much for the cooperation. We'll see you tomorrow at sharp 7 o'clock. Right. Take care. Thank you.